One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episodes 7 and 8 of Amazon's Outer Range, entitled The Unknown, that's episode 7, and The West, that's episode 8. So, while delivering some answers, I feel like this show kind of limped across the finish line by, I think leaving more questions and looks of bewilderment from me than giving satisfying answers and conclusions to questions. It gave us a few, but like not it left way more questions than it answered. And I think that, let me kind of break down, I think, how I look at this show and shows like it. So in my notes when I'm watching this show and a few other shows like it, I like to break down the episodes by character. Like, this is the path that this character went on throughout the episodes. And that's how I'm going to cover this episode as well. And I'll leave an extra section for miscellaneous stuff that doesn't revolve around any of the main characters. And then this week, I left an extra section for unanswered questions. And the unanswered question section has like 12 questions in it. And it's just like, why is there so many? Like, you couldn't answer any of them? There's probably more that I just didn't even think of. But I think ultimately this show is going to suffer from trying too hard to fit into the intrigue that comes with these like mystery box shows. When you got a bunch of like weird and unexplained shit that happens on the screen, like, that's fine. But if you don't explain it, I don't know. I think they think it comes off as like cool and artsy and shit like that. But like, it makes me feel like it reeks of like, let's push this to season 2 so that we have time to write ourselves out of the corners that we backed ourselves into because we thought it would be cool and artsy to put a bunch of weird shit on the screen that doesn't make sense and that we're not going to answer. So it feels like, and I hate this, I talk about shows that do this all the time, shows that prioritize weird for the sake of weird over telling a good story. And they think, the weirder that we are, the more questions that we raise, the goofier it is, the more people are going to talk about it. And they will talk about it, but they're not going to talk about it positively if you don't have something of substance behind it that feels satisfying. And this again felt like, let's just throw whatever we can at the wall, see what sticks. And if we leave a bunch of shit unanswered, whatever, we'll handle it in season 2. That's what it felt like. And it feels lazy to me to do that. And I just wish that there were aspects of this. Let me rewind. There were aspects of this show that were frustratingly pointless and felt like, let's just throw this shit in here just so we can have more weird shit that we had. We had 48 weird things before. Let's push it to 50. Let's just throw some more weird shit in here. And there's way too much of that in this show that felt out of place at the time and that doesn't get resolved or answered by the end of this season. And that feels like they're assuming they're going to get a second season, which they may not. And if you don't, then this show's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's not going to find a second footing a few years from now or get this big, huge following. It's not going to be a part of like the cinematic zeitgeist in the 2020s. It's going to be forgotten instantly. And that's what you suffer for. That's what you risk when you do something like this that's takes a lot of risk, but that you don't intend on actually paying off until future seasons. And I have a feeling that's what's going to happen, and I don't give a fuck because they didn't give a fuck about telling a interesting self-contained story within this one season. Well, I take that back. It was definitely interesting, but I'm just frustrated by this constant thing that happens in television nowadays, where they just want to ask more questions and be weirder and weirder just for the sake of doing it in hopes that people are going to talk about it when it's not about talk. It's the same thing that happens on Twitter. Like, people say fucked up stuff just for retweets and likes. It's like that. Like, let's just make this shit and have all these questions, have all this confusion, and people are going to talk about it, and it's going to be crazy. But the problem is, like, you got to make a good show. Like, if we talk about it, we're going to say bad things if you don't give a fuck about answering some of these questions. And they put way more importance on raising questions and being weird than they did on telling a cohesive story that leaves you feeling satisfied at the end. And that's a damn shame that seems to be the priority here. But having said that, I didn't hate these two episodes. I thought that the show as a whole, actually, I didn't hate the show at all. I actually enjoyed it, but I just wanted to get that negative shit out of the way before I actually started talking about the episode. So like I don't even though I did kind of shit on it, I didn't kind of shit on it. I did shit on it. Even though I shit on it, like I don't feel negatively about these episodes or this show. I just feel negatively about that aspect of television that seems to exist right now. This show did do a lot of cool things, and I did find it enjoyable to watch. It's just not something that I'm going to have any particular interest in following because now I don't trust these people who made this show. Because I feel like you sent me through 8 episodes, most of which felt entirely pointless. Like, yeah, maybe those things will start to come to light and make sense in future seasons, but most of what we took in felt pointless. So why would I trust you to give me a second season that's satisfying when this one didn't end in a satisfying way? But, all right, I think I'm going to start with reviewing not reviewing, but talking about the episode and just kind of like sharing my thoughts on what we did learn. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to start and go character by character, not character by character, but like kind of like, major character and groups of characters, whatever. So I'm going to start with Royal. Royal opens this series of episodes stranded on the side of the road. He gets picked up by Billy. Billy takes him at gunpoint to a roller skating rink that we saw from a flashback at the very beginning of the 7th episode. And the flashback has Perry beating the shit out of Trevor Tillerson at this roller skating rink for seemingly no reason. He can't even really give a reason for doing it to Royal in the car. And he talks about this deep-seated anger that he has. Like they kind of discuss like the nature of anger. And we had that moment last week where Perry said something to the effect of like whatever's in Royal is in him. And they're tied together. That's something I would have liked to have explored. And they didn't do that here. Now, I do think that is something. When I get to the autumn section here, I'm going to do a lot of theorizing, and I'm probably going to do a lot of reading from my notes directly because there's so many different thoughts that I kind of just like vomited onto the keyboard while I was writing this out. But right now, I feel kind of, wishing that Perry and Royal had talked about or at least resolved or discussed or given a little bit more information on why Perry feels like they share this anger thing. There's a lot of things that they questions that they raise with Perry and his relationship with Royal that I think are worth discussing. But as of right now, it's something that we didn't really get an answer to, and I wish they'd explored it more. But see what I said for the past 8 minutes. But present day, Billy makes it look like he's gonna kill Royal, but he doesn't. He essentially tells him to leave Autumn alone. And then he also says randomly that he thinks something bad is going to happen to his granddaughter. And after Royal gets home, him and Perry approaches him and is like, yo, we need to go for a ride. Because Perry had a conversation with Autumn that we didn't see prior. And they ride out to the hole. And Royal tells the story of what happened to him when he was a kid. He was out hunting with his father. He went to go shoot a deer. And the deer moves. He moved the gun with it. And he accidentally shot and killed his father. And he didn't want to... He goes home. He didn't want to have to deal with telling his family what he'd done. He goes out into the field, and this is when the hole materializes in front of him. He jumps in, and he comes back out. And when he comes back out, it mirrors the imagery that we saw when Wayne had a vision of a kid, which we know is Royal, crawling out of this hole. And he like grabs onto a kid's leg or something. I guess we can assume this is Kid Wayne. And he says that he entered the hole in, I think, 1886 and emerged in 1968. Lots to explore there. But one of the questions I had was what happened that he doesn't remember the first 9 years of his life? And now I'm thinking like, well, it must be because the first 9 years of his life were 82 years ago. So could be why he doesn't remember it. But after he tells him this, Perry jumps in the hole and then the hole closes up. And it made me wonder too if I'll get to that later because I have so many questions in the autumn section of this that all of this is connected. As the show has told us, all of this is connected and feels connected. I just really, I'm telling you, I feel like they got good stuff here. They should have put more of it into this season. I'm telling you, I feel like there's some really great stuff here. But if they don't get a second season, it was pointless. So Royal then goes after Autumn to kill her because, I mean, like, she's now behind all sorts of loss that he's experienced. He meets her in town. Him, and Billy have like this shootout. They hop in the car. They have a shootout while they're driving. Royal breaks out a rifle, kills Billy. They crash. Autumn crawls out of the car, and then bison come, a whole bunch of bison. They trample Autumn. He hides under the car. He then notices a scar on Autumn's forehead that matches the scar that Amy had on her head after the accident last week. And he puts two and two together that Autumn must be a future/older version of Amy. And then he takes her home, puts her in Amy's bed, apologizes to Cecilia, says he wants his family back. She says their whole family is gone, which is absolutely true. And then, weirdly, the very last scene of this episode, the very last moment, there's like a beep. Then Royal looks off to the side, and then the episode ends. I don't know what that was about. That I don't even have a theory for. Everything else I kind of have a theory for, which I'm going to talk about in the Autumn section. But that, well, not everything else, but the big picture stuff, I feel is all connected. Which, like I said, they've been saying that the whole time. So as far as Autumn goes, I'm going to start by mentioning that the very start of episode 7, when we first see Autumn, she's on the phone, and she says, "Don't call me that, Mom," on the phone. I think this is a good time. This is a good time talking about it. So later what was it? Was that 7 or 8? I think it was 8, where Rebecca comes back. She doesn't explain shit. She just says she had to hide and that she needs Amy to come with her. So I'm sorry, I didn't mention that Amy ran into her. She finds Amy and that she needs Amy to go with her. I'm going to start reading from my notes here because these are kind of like jumbled thoughts that I spat out onto my computer, onto my keyboard. But I feel like all the stuff that I question here kind of helped me wrap my head around these 2 episodes, which is why, even though I did shit on it at the beginning for leaving so many questions unanswered, I do still have a positive outlook on the future of it because I could see seeds of greatness germinating, but they just didn't put hardly any of it in this season. But let me start with my questions. Now, could it be the case that during the time between this moment being when Rebecca grabs Amy in, we'll say it's 2022 at this rodeo, could it be that during this time between this moment and when Autumn shows up at the ranch that they concocted some sort of plan together to get the ranch? Out of spite, revenge on Royal, but for what? Could he be involved in why she was missing, she being Rebecca? So Perry says that he doesn't believe that Royal had nothing to do with Rebecca going missing. So I'm just going to continue real quick. This would also include both of them needing to go back to the past, because if in 2022 Rebecca grabs child Autumn and then Autumn showed up however many weeks ago as an adult, then that means that time would have had to pass for Amy to grow up and then go back to, we'll just say, the beginning of this season as an adult to play out these events. So that means that implies that they should have some sort of ability to control, and maybe they gain this in the future when they're doing all this scientific work around this whole, gain the ability to essentially program in a destination. That's kind of what I'm starting to get at here. Where was I? Okay, so they go back to just before the moment where Autumn arrives. Autumn puts all this into play while Rebecca hides in this timeline. We just need to know why Rebecca left and how she engineered all this. This also satisfies my dissatisfaction with Autumn being Amy, because how would she not recognize her own grandfather? But maybe she did, and she doesn't care. She doesn't care. She hides it because this is all part of a revenge scheme. But again, for what? Did he have something to do, he being Abbott, with Rebecca going missing after all? That would explain why both of them would want revenge. So, here's my thought. I'm put it succinctly instead of these jumbled thoughts that I have here. I'm wondering if Royal did something that he is hiding that either caused Rebecca to leave or he made her leave, or whatever the case may be. Rebecca leaves. Time passes. Rebecca comes to this rodeo, grabs Amy. She said she had to go hide. assuming this is from whatever it is that Royal did. She had to go hide from Royal. She comes back, grabs Amy. They leave, as with Amy as a child and Rebecca having been gone for 9 months. Now they are off the table for the time being. Now I'm going to assume that time passes and they concoct this plan, and the plan is the playing out of what we see in this season. So they concoct this plan to get revenge on Royal for whatever he did that made Rebecca have to hide. Part of this plan involves informing Perry of this as well, but back to that later. So Autumn gets into the hole. Now enough time has passed. Autumn's an adult. Say it's been however many years. Say she was, let's just say 9's a number they love on the show. Let's say she was 9. Now she's 25. So 16 years have passed. She comes back as Autumn. Royal doesn't recognize her. She now begins the plan to, I believe, acquire the ranch. I don't know to what end, other than possibly just to fuck with Royal. But she concocts this. She begins the initiation of this plan to get the ranch that revolves around Billy, because again, she's gonna have the foresight of everything that happens here, because she was around for these 16 years. She's gonna have the foresight of everything that happens. So she's just coming back to play it out. She plays it out, and it's something that essentially revolves around, them putting everybody against Royal. So like her telling Perry what, I have something to tell you about your father. She told him, probably told him whatever it is that, or at least a portion of, just like, hey, your father was involved in Rebecca going missing. Something like that. And Perry jumping into, like they pull Perry into the plan altogether. Perry jumping into the hole was part of the plan because they being Perry, Rebecca, and Autumn / Amy, his daughter, have all, now that Perry has been filled in on this, have all concocted this plan. So now he jumps in the hole purposefully, knowing that if he doesn't show up to his court date, they lose the ranch, and the ranch is going to go to Autumn because she is technically his granddaughter. So she would get it by default because Rhett is gone, Perry is gone. I don't know why Cecilia wouldn't get it. We can figure that out later. Maybe she shows herself to be mentally unfit. I don't know. But that's my idea, is that this was all a plan for Autumn to get the ranch and for them to get revenge on Royal. But for what? All right. So moving on to the Abbotts. A lot of this I probably talked about, but we'll see. Perry takes full responsibility for Trevor's murder. His bail set at the $500,000. They put the ranch up as collateral to get him out of jail, which I just talked about what happens if he doesn't show up in court. They lose the ranch. I talked about the conversation with Autumn where she says she needs to tell him about Royal. We don't see that convo. I then again raised the same question. Could he have done all this on purpose to help Autumn get the ranch? If Perry believes Royal is involved in his wife going missing, maybe he willingly hops in the hole. So same thing that I said. So Rhett continues to be entirely pointless. They did not even try with the Rhett storyline. Like, if the idea is like, okay, we got to get everybody off the table so that the ranch goes to Autumn, like the way they did this with Rhett is just terrible. Like, he leaves because like his family's not supporting him while he does the rodeo shit. Like, okay, whatever. He wants to go off the ranch and be with Maria. Fine, good, go. You two were the least interesting aspect of this show by a country mile. Please, goodbye, see you. Cecilia has a strange encounter with the same bear. I'm assuming it's the same bear that Autumn ran into. She goes back to her bear shed, and the little bear is gone. And she comes back out, and the older bear seems to be over the younger bear. She runs off, and instead of getting in the car and driving away, she gets in the car, pulls out her gun, and shoots the bear, which takes considerably more time. And then the bear gets up and walks off, and she finishes the bear. More on that later. Talking about the Tillersons, Billy shows Luke the hole. Luke tries to kill Wayne. Billy stops him and they fight. And then the next time we see them, it's like, what was it? I have it in my notes. Okay, I can't remember how it starts off, but like Billy comes into a room and Luke's just standing there. Oh no! First, Billy is putting some of the, what I'm assuming is the dust from from Wayne's rock into Wayne's mouth. And then he goes and Luke's in another room and they talk about these owls. And I'm sitting there like, the last time we saw them, they were fighting. Luke was asking why he keeps singing, which I obviously want to know the answer to as well. And it looked like he was like drooling into his mouth or something. I don't know. He was so angry. It might have been the side of his face, but and then all of a sudden they're talking about the owls, and I'm like, this is not how people behave. Like, how do you get from like, hey, we're fighting and it looks like he's possibly about to kill Billy, and then we just jump in time to where everything's okay, and then he mentions that moment in like an offhanded remark, like, hey, if you don't try to kill me anymore, you can have the ranch. Like, that was very clunky to me, like very poorly done. Like I said, that didn't track or connect at all. People don't operate in that way. You can't have time jumps that don't make sense like that. And it does not, time jump can be this happened at 6 p.m., the fight happened at 6 p.m., and then they don't see each other again until 9 o'clock in the morning. But at 9 o'clock in the morning, you need to address the fucking fight. You don't have some other shit happen. Like, that was really weird. Let's see. Billy sings twice in this episode, and easily in this episode being the 8th episode, easily my most hated aspect of this show. Again, Luke asked him why he sings, and it makes me wonder if the singing is tied to something involving Wayne, but again, something that they seem to have pushed off to season 2 if they get it, and I'm left with feeling like they shoehorned in singing because they had Noah Reed on the show, and we're like, okay, he could sing, let's just make him sing all the time. And they shoehorned in him singing twice. It was absolutely awful because it makes no sense. They just do it just to do it. He's not a singer at a lounge or something. He just sings just to fucking sing. It's so easily the worst aspect of this series. Absolutely hate it. Luke goes to where the hole used to be because, like I said, it closed up after Perry jumped in. And he starts digging around in different places. And eventually he does seem to strike like I don't know, almost looks like oil. It's the same material that's been in the rocks, but and it gets on his hand, but then the hole kind of like reopens partially, and the bison come running out. Hey, like I said, the bison trample Autumn. They run Rhett and Maria off the road. It would be nice if we don't have to see them anymore, but who knows? Sheriff Joy had a uneventful 2 episodes. She goes to investigate this whole mastodon thing at this Frank guy's house. We see the logo, the symbol that was in the mountains that Autumn caught a hold to, which to me, I wonder if it's kind of meant to be almost like a sideways Abbott symbol. And that's kind of like her way of like I'm the anarchist Abbott. Like, I don't know. But the symbol that Autumn carved into herself, she carved into Billy. And we see this carved into like a rock wall near this Frank guy's house. She sees like a trail of this same black stuff that we've been seeing the whole series. And she follows it to see bison run. And she sees it the first time and smiles. She sees it again from above near some like what looks like teepees and cries. I do not understand the bison shit at all. So, I think that's a good transition into my unanswered questions section. Let me start. I don't know what's up with the bison. I don't get it. The bison show up at random times. I just don't get their significance. There could be some. I think the bison are traveling in between these times. Via like maybe they were. These are bison from say before Columbus got here. Like when the Native Americans still had this country before Columbus gets here. These are pre-Columbus bison, and they've been traveling back and forth through time via these holes. That's why they got like arrows. The one got arrows in it and shit, and why we see them running past these teepees, and Sheriff Joy gives like the single tear and shit. Like, I feel like it's connected to like Native American history, but I still don't understand what their importance is in present day. I've already raised the what happened to Rebecca question. I've already given what I feel is like a bare bones kind of answer to that. How is everyone just now discovering the hole? Was it closed up again until it was needed? Until Autumn came back? Because it seems weird you'd have a massive hole like that on your land and everybody discovered it during this season of this show. But like I said, it might have opened up once Autumn came back, and maybe it was never there before. And Royal had been quiet about it ever since he came back out of it in 1968. What's up with Frank and these mastodons, and what the fuck is he talking about? What's up with the bears? I thought the CG for the bears wasn't that good, but what was their purpose? Why did the one bear tell Autumn to go tell Billy? Like, what's up with the bears? I don't know that. What happened to the surveyor in the land hearing? We saw him swerve to avoid hitting a bison, but we don't know what happened to him. And then they never discussed the land hearing again. And I still think that's important because at the end of the day, if that land belongs to the Tillersons now, they can do what they want. So what happened with that? Why did Autumn say yellow to the bear? What did that mean? What happened? What happened? What was up with that future sight that we saw at the end of episode 1, where when Royal came out of the hole, he was in the future, and Cecilia told him he'd been dead for 2 years. What was all that? I guess that's gonna be in season 2 as well. And yeah, like I said, what happened to Royal being dead for 2 years? That whole thing of him dying in Cecilia's arms, and Autumn there being dressed like a gym coach. Like, what was that about? So yeah, so many. I'm sure there's many more unanswered questions that I haven't thought of, but I'm gonna wrap this one on up. But like I said, I have a lot of issues with what they seem to have pushed off for season 2. I could see a lot of greatness kind of germinating there, but they left way too much of it on the table. Didn't give me enough in this season. There's a whole lot of potential here, and I did enjoy it for what it was, but I feel like they dropped the ball by relying too heavily on being mysterious rather than telling a satisfying story for your first season. So I'm going to wrap up my Outer Range coverage with that, and until next time, peace.